Thanks so much for doing this.
Hey, Leah, thanks for having me.
You bet. Well, why don't we start at the beginning, as we do with all adventures? Tell us a little bit about Bidali.
Yeah, sure. So we provide financial infrastructure for the future of money. And that's a pretty loaded phrase, but I think our thesis, going all the way back to 2015, is that cryptocurrency is the future of money, whether that's central bank issued, privately issued, or more decentralized versions like people are familiar with the most popular being Bitcoin, but there's lots of other innovation happening in the space. And we provide kind of that last mile infrastructure for people to be able to actually use it as money. And so we started off doing that because in 2015, we actually had a consulting business. We built a bunch of open source software that's used by developers all around the world, in Nigeria and Ukraine and Argentina, Venezuela, Brazil, and kind of from startups to Fortune 100s.
Wow.
And so we thought, well, we want to try and hire these people familiar with our tech. And when we went to go hire these amazing developers, we realized that we naively couldn't actually pay a lot of these people. And so back in 2015, that's kind of when I got more exposed to what was happening with cryptocurrency. We tried to pay them in Bitcoin, and there were problems with that in terms of volatility and ease of use, and you couldn't use that to pay for real goods and services, at least not easily there. So that kind of failed, and we didn't do that. But that kind of got me thinking about, what was happening in this peer-to-peer cash idea. The Central Bank of Canada has actually done a ton of research on digital currencies and has actually been kind of a thought leader globally amongst central banks over the last decade. They put a lot of research into thinking about digital currency and cryptocurrency and how this might interplay with our world today. And then I was also seeing people thinking about what we call now, quote unquote, stable coins or dollar pegged crypto assets that are now privately issued and used, and that have grown significantly over the last 3-4 years in particular. And so kind of with all those things happening, it just kind of started to solidify this thesis that the future of money will be cryptographically secured currency. And somebody needs to be there to be able to provide that infrastructure to make it usable.
Wow, incredible. This is so forward thinking. I love this. Okay, so let's just talk a little bit about some of the basics. Like, how many years have you guys been in business?
Yeah, so we were founded in 2018, officially. So I guess we're going on year 4 now, just past the year 4 milestone. We raised a little bit of investment from angels and myself. I put some money into the company to kind of kickstart it. And then, what we started off doing was even to figure out how to build this infrastructure, because it's really new tech and it's very different from traditional payment systems. Even the mechanics of how it works is very different. We thought the best way would be for us to be our own merchant. So where we can kind of dog food the tech and figure it out, because you obviously can't go to a business and say, hey, support our payment system or use our payment system when we haven't even built it yet. And I think in some industries that can work quite well, but when you're dealing with money, it doesn't quite work so well to sell something before it's been built, especially since we didn't know how it should even really be built. So we figured the easiest way for us to enable people to spend on brands they care about and be our own merchant was to enable people to buy gift cards with digital assets. So we initially launched a proof of concept with that, and thinking that might be a way to generate some revenue. And so we've been doing that, and that's been growing really, really well organically. And now we're starting to step into other uses of the technology and kind of bring it more to a mainstream, as opposed to sort of this initial crypto early adopter user niche.
Okay, that's exciting. Okay, so how many employees do you have right now?
So there's only 4 of us right now. We've leveraged a lot of automation because we're pretty engineering heavy. A lot of us have been building software and distributed systems for over 15 years. So most of our stuff is actually fully automated. A lot of the stuff that we do, even some of our customer support. So we've been able to get by very far with a small team. But now we're working through raising additional capital to grow the team, because we now kind of hit bottlenecks where we can only automate so much.
Yeah.
So we're now moving into, more stuff for customer support and sales and marketing,
Right.
things like that. Yeah.
It's exciting. Okay. So, here at Thin Air Labs, we always like to talk about creating this, human impact. When you think about creating massive human impact, what does that mean to you in Bidali?
Yeah. So I think this is a great question, because this is actually what's really been the driver for us, is the human and social impact that this technology can enable. Because when we were trying to hire people in Argentina and Venezuela and Nigeria and Ukraine and elsewhere, the problem a lot of them have had is that they don't benefit from the same financial stability and even political stability that we have had over the last maybe even century in North America and large parts of Western Europe, right? And so the problem that comes with that is, we've met people who have gone through severe hyperinflation. And so it's a very topical thing right now. Post-COVID, we're seeing really high inflation rates here in North America, where people are kind of going, gosh, 6% inflation for the year, right? Being substantially, very, very high, and people being concerned about their finances. And
for sure,
how does that affect their purchasing power? Mm-hmm. Whereas, one of our employees in Argentina, they're facing 6.5% inflation for the month. So, their annualized inflation is about 55 to 60%. So I'm throwing a lot of words out there, but what does that mean when you think about it on an act, to quote, people who just want to know what that actually means to their money? It means that you're losing your purchasing power. You can buy less stuff year over year, every year. And so if you've saved for your entire lifetime, like we've all been taught to, diversified your investments and put money away, if you get hit in this hyperinflationary cycle through no fault of your own, just because of policy decisions or economic changes, and you don't have the optionality to move your wealth to a more stable asset, mm-hmm. which is what happens in a lot of these countries, then your wealth that you've saved your entire life can be completely eroded. So imagine being a physician or a teacher who saved their entire life, ready to retire or just retired, and now you can no longer retire because you can't afford food because it's costing you twice as much every year. Right. And so that's where we see the power of this technology is twofold. One, enabling anybody with a mobile phone or an internet connection to have a multi-currency bank account in their pocket where they can switch between different types of currencies based on environmental conditions. And that's partly because of the economic or the cryptography aspect of it. Mm-hmm. And the other part of that is because of how much more efficient these systems can be when using common money protocols, let's say, that interop with each other. So that's really the big thing that we've been pushing on, is essentially how do we give people the ability to control their own wealth and choose which currencies they want to transact in, as opposed to being stuck with just the one they're born into, depending on where they were born in the world.
It's incredible. Okay, so let's take a moment to look down the road then. So if you can project, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the road, what do you hope for Bidali?
Yeah, so I think long term, in the long term, we think that crypto will be the future of money. And so a lot can change in a decade based on when we think even 10 years ago, it was in a lot of cases, you and I were probably still using maps to find our way around, like physical paper maps, right? Yeah. And so I think what you see with technology a lot of the times is that, it's kind of slow and then all at once. And then, you look back 10 years and you go, wow, that was really weird that we did things a certain way. And so I think our view is that, especially driven by emerging markets and where they're facing higher inflationary pressure, don't maybe have the same stability that we have in North America, that we're going to see a complete leapfrog of financial infrastructure, like what we know as card-based and maybe even computer-based digital banking, where people are going to be doing a lot on their mobile phone. And we want to provide that infrastructure to make it easy for anybody to basically have the optionality to be their own bank or trust other counterparties to be kind of a banking kind of pseudo neobank or or banking counterparty and be able to safely transact with anybody else anywhere in the world for very low cost.
That's an exciting future to look forward to. Eric, thank you so much for telling us all about it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Leah.